we're out here. We're seeing MaXXXine. It's early. It's fucking early. It's 9 a.m.
I'm always up at this time. What are you talking about?
I'm usually up at this time too, but not to see a goddamn movie. Day after a holiday, but hell,
Hey, but
we're seeing it.
Angelo's here now.
It's early. That's right. Angelo's here. Say hi. Okay. And even the movie theater isn't open yet. Well, it's probably open,
It's
but we
open
won't
for
figure
your
out.
Minion movie.
Oh yeah, for the Minions, because that's what we're really here to see. They all tricked me, and I'm going to see the Minions at MaXXXine. Anyway, if you've paid attention to the channel, you know how much I loved X and how much I love Pearl. So I'm looking forward to MaXXXine, and nothing's been really spoiled for me, but it's hard to watch movies or to look at anything without somebody talking about movies and what their expectations are. So I just want it to be satisfying. I have my own thoughts of where I think the movie is going to go. We'll see what happens. And then we'll be back with a full review at some point. Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome back to the MaXXXine review. So, as these always go, this is going to be spoiler-free, and then we'll get right into spoilers with everything else after we've done that part. Well, after we've done this part. So, to preface everything, because we were walking up to the theater, I didn't do a really good job in the intro section to kind of explain my thoughts on the whole thing. I am absolutely in love with X and Pearl. I do not see them being any different on the scale of how much I love both of those movies. I think both of those movies are great for different reasons. I love the grittiness of X. I love the wonderment of Pearl. I think Mia Goth, honestly, is better in Pearl than she is in X. And I think that's because of the character of Pearl versus the character of MaXXXine, right? I think MaXXXine's a good character. I think Pearl's a great character. But overall, there are things that I just absolutely love about. I love how visceral X is in comparison to Pearl, where Pearl really feels like it's like a Wizard of Oz type of film, right? Where it just has this like magicalness to it, even though there's a lot of stuff that's really sinister in that movie as well. And just the stuff that Pearl goes through and like how her mind gets shaped, even towards the end of the movie, how she kind of starts as like a simple girl and then ends up the way that she does, kind of reverting back at the end of it. And that scarecrow scene, while it's really odd, is pretty goddamn magical when you watch it. Whereas X, the kills are more brutal. It's definitely that 70s sexploitation type of film. And it was a shock for a lot of it, right? I just didn't expect actually a lot when it came to X. It was a movie I wanted to see, didn't see it in the theater, get to see Pearl in the theater either. And now I got to see MaXXXine actually in a theater, which I'm very happy about. So off the bat, I like MaXXXine. I think MaXXXine is a good film. It doesn't reach the pinnacles that I hold for Pearl and X. No, it doesn't. And the thing is that the acting is really good. There's some really fucking smart dialogue in this. There are some lines I absolutely loved. I think Kevin Bacon is great, even though sometimes his accent is a little bit odd in the way that he does his old Louisiana private detective-ness. I think that when we get the kills in MaXXXine, I think they're very good. There's one that definitely stands out amongst all of them in this film. But it did subvert some of my expectations of where I thought the story was going to go. But I did figure something out relatively early, because going into the film, I had an idea of what they were going to try to do, right? Versus what they ended up doing, what Ty West ended up doing in this film. I think Mia Goth is still great. I think that I feel at times that MaXXXine is a little bit subdued in this movie in comparison to X, right? Where I think that even in X, she was still kind of like, she wanted to be a star, right? And this is the way that everybody was going to know her name, was through, filming a porno. But there was still kind of like an innocence there. And there's a little bit of that in here, but not completely. And I feel that even though I think some of the stuff that happened in X might have made her hardened when it came to MaXXXine, it wasn't always portrayed that way, right? And they mention it, but it really doesn't feel like it's completely there, that it's 100%. That's where we're going for it in this film, right? Giancarlo Esposito, even though as little he is in this, I like his character a lot. He plays her manager, of course, like I said. But Kevin Bacon plays the private detective that's been hired to try to find her. You have cameos from a bunch of other different people. Halsey's in it just for a little bit. She plays one of her fellow co-workers because MaXXXine's gone to work at a strip club and has become famous in the world of porno, and she's trying to break into now the actual film world, right? She's going to be doing a horror movie. It's going to be a sequel to an established horror movie where we have a director who's really trying to use this as like her breakout moment for like in it being art for her, and MaXXXine using this as the breakout moment for her to go into more legitimate film. And I love there's a scene that, and this is very much in the beginning, I'm not going to spoil, this is not a big spoiler, but there's a scene in the beginning, and it's in the trailer, where she's talking about like what, big stars got their start in horror. And then, they name off Jamie Lee Curtis and a couple other actresses, and then she butts in, MaXXXine fucking Minch. Or minx. Sorry, I don't know why I say minch, probably because I'm thinking of vagina. But nonetheless, it is. Oh well, I think it's really well shot. I think Ty West, he is an amazing director, hands down. There are some things, and I think that what hurts this film the most is in how Pearl and X were filmed. That Pearl was filmed like secretly alongside X. Like moment that X wrapped up, they were already getting into Pearl, and it was just a continuation, and they had some really great ideas and what they were doing. And there's so much, it's not a lot of time in between, but I think that distance in time in between when Pearl was done and to when we get MaXXXine, I think that there are some things that are just overthought in terms of the way that the movie rolls, right? And there's a little bit to be desired about the ending of this film. And that I'll get into the spoilers when we get into the spoiler section for this whole thing. It's just that I feel that there was an acting choice that was done during that part that just kind of ruined some things for me. I wish there was more to it, and what was given by the actor in that position just seemed like it was a little bit over the top, a little bit too over the top. And maybe that's what Ty West kind of wanted and what he was going for. And I get what they were trying to say and what he was trying to say with the whole thing. But it just, that part didn't work for me so well. And even with the little twist, the twist, again, it's something that you kind of felt like it was coming, right? Nothing really special about what happened there. And I do like a little thing that he did in that section. Again, we'll talk about it in the spoilers. But overall, I think that it's a solid movie. I don't agree with a lot of the critics. And here's the one thing that kind of pissed me off. And it pisses me off about these movies in general. When it's something that I'm really fucking excited for, it's like I have to stay off social media completely. But because I have to talk about things, or I want to post things, or somebody sends me something and I want to go look at it, things like that, there's too much of people putting the reviews in a way that it ruins the experience for me as well, right? And one of the things that you're going to see is that they don't believe that he sticks the landing. That Ty West, that this movie doesn't fulfill the promise that was left by X and Pearl. I'm at a 25% of that. I think that it's fine. It sticks the landing and it does what they're looking for. Again, I think part of that is just because of the way the film is done, right? That we're going 5 years past the end of X, where nobody knows what she's done, what she was involved with, and everything's kind of unraveling. And in the storyline of Pearl and MaXXXine, it's odd. It's very odd. And I think that's where I think people have some of their hangups on. Now, in general, if I were just to put this as a standalone movie, it's a really good movie. It's really fun. Like I said, great dialogue. There were some really comedic moments in there, some not so supposed to be comedic moments, but were pretty goddamn funny to me as well. But, overall, if I'm going to review this film, and I don't do this very often, but I agree that it does deserve the half score. So it's a 3.5 out of 5. I don't know, 3.5 out of 5 showgirl
I guess you could say showgirl shows, but that's terrible. But like, oh, I know, porno booths. 3.5 out of 5 porno booths is what it's going to get as its final score for this movie. I think that if you're really into the character of MaXXXine or you're really into Mia Goth, this movie is for you, because I still am enamored with her so much and the way that she does things, and I really enjoy her acting. I've seen her in a bunch of other movies now after I've seen X. Like, I really didn't know who she was that well, right? I knew a couple things about her, but nothing really great. But these movies have just stand off for her, and I really do hope in the whole thing of like starting in horror and becoming a great actress. I kind of see that mirrored in Mia Goth as well, right? And I think that she's bound to have some really big breakthrough roles that are just going to show you what exactly she can do, right? Because just seeing these movies, I feel like I know what she can do, especially when you watch Pearl. I know what she can do. And that, I feel like she should have gotten a nod or a nomination or something for that, because she's absolutely amazing in Pearl. She's great in X. She's amazing in Pearl. And here, she's great. I'm about to say good, but I think she's great in this movie as well. Not at the level of X, but still better than what we deserve for these types of movies. And again, the way that this is shot in this, I get that feeling of the 80s. I get that old 80s type of cinematography that we have. I love that things get, boxed into little boxes, almost like it's a music video at times. That stuff is really cool. And if there's something that Ty West does extremely, extremely well, is have you feel the period of time that he wants this to be filmed into. And so that is a total win for me. And some of the shots are really well done. And I just have a very big admiration for Ty West as a director. If I were to put this on the list of films that he has done, I would say it's about 4 or 5 in terms of my favorite films that he's done. It's not towards the top, definitely X and Pearl are going to be your top ones, and House of the Devil, which I'm hoping is the actual name of the movie. Instead of me just trying to figure this out and going through, maybe I am going to look it up. So we'll just cut this section out here, and I'm going to keep talking so that I know what I'm doing with everything that's been done. Oh, I was right. So yeah, like 1 or 2 are definitely X and Pearl, and I think they're interchangeable. And then House of the Devil is really well done as well. And then I'd probably put The Innkeepers, and then I would go here, and I would definitely put MaXXXine. And then we would go down the list from there. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what Mia Goth does next, if she's going to do more horror or she's going to do something different. I mean, she did the Brian Cronenberg movie. That was pretty good, but she was really good in it as well. And that necessarily wasn't horror. A little bit of body horror, not so much total horror. But I also want to see what Ty West is going to do after this. And if he's going to do another era piece, or he wants to do something straight horror, or he just wants to do something completely different. And I think that I'm ready for it. And I really hope that they do more movies together, because I think they work really well with each other as well. And I think that because this one probably got a bigger budget, this one probably, it definitely was advertised more than either X or Pearl were. I mean, X, you really kind of only saw trailers for it unless it was a horror movie that was coming out, right? But with Pearl, it kind of was in the same vein. But with MaXXXine, I felt like I was seeing it in front of a bunch of different movies, bunch of different types of movies. And they were this was plastered everywhere, from review sites to TV spots to all of this. It was all over the place. So, so if this is the point where you drop off at the video, I'd like to say just make sure that you like and subscribe. You guys have been doing an awesome job in checking out the videos. I really, really, really appreciate it. The video for stop motion has been doing very well, so I do appreciate that. For everybody else, we're going to move into spoilers, so we'll see you back here in just a moment. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the spoiler section for MaXXXine. So, where do I begin with this? And what I really want to, I mean, we're going to go through the movie like I've gone through the movie before, but like The things that I feel really hurt the movie in general, like again, I'm not going to say that this is a bad movie. I think that it does stick the landing. It's just not going to be the best landing in the world. And I think a lot of that has to do with kind of how abruptly it gets to that point. Because a lot of this movie turns out to be the cat and mouse game between Kevin Bacon's character, the detective, and MaXXXine, and him trying to like get her to go to this place, right? So there's the whole backdrop of the Night Stalker, and I think that that's a very good backdrop to put it on, because they're talking a lot about satanic panic towards the beginning of this movie when they bring in the Night Stalker, right? They do a lot of this montage of like all these 80s things that are going on because it takes place in 85. We have, you know, some stock video of Ronald Reagan, and we talk about the Night Stalker, and then there are these killings that are happening at the same time to mimic the Night Stalker's killings, but they're not related. We also get introduced, you know, as we are introduced into the world of what MaXXXine's kind of been doing, right? So she's been doing a bunch of pornos. It starts the movie where it's her as a kid, and we're watching the screen of her like doing this thing for her dad, and her dad's talking to her, and basically she repeats the line that her big famous line that she's, you know, and her dad says, no, you have to say it with conviction if you're going to do it. Don't just say it like you mean it. And so she says it like her dad, who's this big evangelist, right? That's a TV evangelist that we saw in X. And my thought going into this was that I felt like we were going to have a story with MaXXXine, right? That she was, you know, she's trying to make it big, and she's trying to be a movie star, and she's going to do whatever she can because she wants to be famous. It's like Pearl. It's, you know, and that got transferred over to MaXXXine, and now here MaXXXine is going to realize that fame that Pearl always wanted. She, you know, because Pearl said that she'd end up like her, and she's got like that burden on the back of her, which is the same, like, and that comes back to haunt her in a great scene where she has to put on like makeup. She has to make a mask of her head, and they put all the putty on stuff, and she's supposed to stand there for 10 minutes while the mold's being made, right? And then that's when she starts having flashbacks to what happened to her in X, and then the words that Pearl said about her, and then she starts like not being able to breathe and panics and breaks the molding stuff that's on her face to get that fresh air. But it's more of her trying to break what Pearl was saying that she's going to be, because Pearl wanted the same thing but ended up being this old lady that didn't get what she wanted, right? But MaXXXine is determined to do it for herself. So what I was originally trying to say was that I thought it was going to be a movie of MaXXXine basically being the killer, right? That she was going to be the one going out there, that she was going to be the one doing the killings to move ahead and anybody to stop her way, and that the fact that the stuff that happened to her in X really shaped her mind in a very negative way, that, you know, it wasn't just about being a star, but that she, you know, whatever she had to do, because even we get the shot inside the trailer where the director is telling her, whatever you need to do is to squash this and get your head right, do it. And she's like, I intend to. And that's where I thought was the whole thing. Like, yeah, you know, somebody's blackmailing her and they're trying to bring that out, and she's going to get revenge on that, right? Turns out that's not what it is. It is something similar in a way, but it's not exactly that. It is specifically that, you know, somebody's trying to get her attention, right? They've hired Kevin Bacon to one find her and to one bring her to this house on the hills where all her friends have been going, and they all end up dead, right? And you kind of piece everything together that, okay, so she's not, you know, related to that. And while her friends are dying, there's a set of cops that are trying to figure out exactly who the killer is, and there is, you know, her trying to shoot this movie, Puritan 2, and there's a bunch of people that are boycotting this movie, saying it's satanic and that Puritans would never be like this, and we can't let our kids to do that. And that all does culminate to the ending scenes of the movie. I do really like the kills in this movie. We have some really good kills, you know, when she, and the thing is that the movie is itself, it's like 104 minutes. It almost hits the 2 hour mark, but it does fall a little bit short of that with 104 minutes, you know, about 16 minutes short. And you got to take about 5 minutes out for credits and stuff like that. So, you know, you can put it in there. I'd say it's more like about 98 minutes long if you want to just take the movie. There's nothing at the end of the credits either. So if you plan to stay towards the end, you can just watch the credits and enjoy the music. The soundtrack is fucking killer for this movie too. Again, I think they picked the right songs to get you the feeling that it's the 80s. I think that the motifs are there. I think, again, the cinematography is really good. I think that how it's stylized and how it's edited makes you feel like you're watching an old school 80s slasher movie, you know, and like that B-level slasher movie that you've got there. There are some kills that happen off screen, especially when it comes to Halsey's character and one other character that die off screen due to these people that are trying to mimic or doing these kills so that they look like it's the Night Stalker doing it at the same time, and increasing the satanic panic because they're all being branded with these, you know, the star with a circle on it, you know, the satanic symbol that you normally see everywhere out there. So the opening of the movie is fucking great, to where it's that scene from the trailer where they're like, okay, you know, here's the scene, do the scene for me. And that's where Mia Goth shows her fucking chops. In that scene in particular, it's amazing to see her just like switch like that. And there's a lot of cool things that are just like that made me smile. And I was already hooked by that scene. And I was like, oh, but the quality of that scene doesn't carry to everything that's being done in the movie. And that's also where I think some people have the problems with it. But when it's really good, it's really good. And when it's not the best, it's just kind of like, oh, it's okay. You know, it's doing fine. So she just, you know, MaXXXine nails it. And she says something at the end of her audition that she has there, but you don't learn about what it is till much later. Though I love it when she leaves the place and she looks at all the girls, you all better just fucking leave because I nailed that shit. Like, I was like, oh, that's great. And she gets in her car and she fucking drives away. And that's how you get the title credits, because her license plate says MaXXXine on it with the XXX on it. It's great. And then you find out that she's been basically doing pornos. So she's really well known for the pornos. And there's a lot of guys that are out there that are, you know, whenever they meet her, oh, I love your work. And they're not talking necessarily about the films that she's done, because she hasn't done a regular film yet, which to me is kind of funny in the way that they did it. And, you know, then you find out that she's, you know, she's working at a strip club still, and she still does strip clothes. Basically, you know, she's been working hard to get that name for herself, and she's been putting in the work because that's what she believes. Like, it's not just kind of given to you. You gotta want it, and you gotta work for it, and you gotta do it. But then, you know, when other people around her start dying and the cops like come to her and try to talk to her about it, and there's one, she has a friend that works in a video store that, you know, it's great because he's putting movies away and they're in like the back section, and when they finish the conversation, he holds a videotape. He's like, ass sandwich. And I'm like, that is a great name for a fucking porno if I've ever seen one before. You know, but eventually she gets sent a tape. That's the uncovered footage or the unrecovered footage from X, right, of her having sex on tape for the, you know, the first time for them, like shooting their porno. And, you know, she kind of freaks out, but she does reach out to her friend again to see if he can figure out where it came from. And he knows the type of tape, but he doesn't necessarily know who would have made this tape, right? And he's like, this is cheaper than some of the other ones, so we will have to look and get it. And that's where we learn about, like, you know, she meets with Halsey and a couple of, you know, some of the other girls that are going to this party on the hill, and they're all trying to get her to come, but she's more focused, and she's like, no, I have to film my movie. I have to know my parts. And so, you know, and that's where it's weird, because she's going into, like, the outside world. She's like hardened, right? Because when Halsey leaves in the cab, and probably one of the most brutal scenes in the movie, and something that you don't do to balls in this case, because normally you don't do it to a dick. This time you don't do this to balls. And she's walking away, and she's walking to go home, and she goes down the alleyway where normally the door it's unlocked, but this time it's chained, and there's a guy following her with a knife, and the guy's coming upon her, but she has a gun in her pocket, and so she points the gun at him, and she tells him to strip down, and he's like, what? You know, it was just a joke. I'm just pranking. Guys, I'm just pranking here. I wasn't really trying to kill you or trying to do anything. Yeah, come on. It's a fucking joke. And she's like, nope, go ahead and strip. And she has him, like, lay down on the ground. And then, you know, and basically she says, you haven't, you know, and this is where it's that hardened person from X that shows up. And it shows up here, not in the other scenes. in the filming scenes or the movie working scenes, but she has him lay on the ground, and then before she leaves, she takes her high-heeled fucking shoes and she stomps on his balls so hard that the testicles pop out of his fucking nutsack. It is hard to fucking watch, and right now my balls are aching as much as that man probably did on the screen, and the fact that we had to see it, it's just even worse. It's a well done scene that is just absolutely brutal to take in, especially for, I think, a dude, but it also like just shows her like how she still doesn't take no shit. And again, every time that she's not in front of the director where she's acting, and again, I don't know if it's just the acting part or her like just because she wants to make it, she needs to do these things. She acts timid and respectful, and yes, I'm gonna do it. And even when she meets the actress who was in the first movie, the main character of the first movie, and she's all excited because hey, if you just do what she says, she's gonna get you through. And look at me, I'm in the second one, even though my character got burned through a crisp, and I'm gonna be in this movie as well. And then, she's also going to the party, so you know what's going to happen to her, the place that's up on the ridge. So she, like I said, she starts receiving all these little things, and eventually Kevin Bacon's character comes up to her. Like, she's doing a striptease dance in one of those, booths that they have inside of those, like, movie stores that you go, or adult sex shops. Like, that's part of her, like, working as well. And so some dude in gloves, and it's really weird, like, to know when you have the big revelation of who this guy is at the end of the movie, to be like, why would you be doing that? But he goes and watches her, and then he's like just getting angrier and rips off something off the side and then cuts back. And that's when like she's leaving with Halsey. Then we cut over to the car and we see Kevin Bacon character, his first time in the movie. And we see the guys with him in the back. And he's like, if you're really going to do this, you're going to carry through it, you're going to either have to pay me more or it's going to be all up to you. And then it becomes him constantly chasing down MaXXXine, and there's a great scene with him and her in like a 34th story like bar / dining place that it definitely reeks of 80s when you go in there. Like, I felt like I was watching RoboCop or some shit like that in the way that it looked, or When Harry Met Sally, like just this weird setting that you have it in. But him going through, like, he has a great line too. He's like, he looks at her and he's like, wow, I didn't think that you'd be that tall. Of course, the only time I've ever seen you is when you're on your back. Like, it's little sharp pieces of dialogue like that are just great. And she like snaps back at him pretty well too. He basically is saying, you need to go here. If you don't go here, things are going to be worse for you. And instead of her trying to go get help, she tries to figure out how she can get out of it or just ignore it because, hey, you can't do that to me. But of course, more of her friends end up dead. And then eventually brings the cops to her, and she eventually goes to the police station with the cops. And, the cops are trying to do this, like, good guy, bad cop, good cop, bad cop thing with her, and it doesn't really work. And to one point, when she's like, I need to leave because I have to go to work, and the one female detective that's with her goes up to her, he's like, you need to help me. And then she looks at him, maybe these women need to help themselves. Not just rely on everybody else. And that becomes kind of like the mantra for the whole thing. Because eventually, Kevin Bacon's detective eventually is like chasing her on set. And there's a lot of other things that happen too within the like movie within a movie that were going on. But I think that while they're good scenes, I think the core of the movie is, like I said, this cat and mouse game that becomes between the detective and MaXXXine, where the detective chases her around the set, and she ends up getting away by hiding in the Bates house, right? They go to the Bates, and it's weird, because even Patrick mentioned this, because they're on the lot, and they're like, there's no way that there's, like, nobody working around there, and she's just running through an empty parts of the lot. Like, there's all these people working on this film, and they wouldn't run into anybody. It's kind of odd, to be honest with you, and I kind of agree with that. But I like that, it's funny because you go there, it's like, oh yeah, I've seen this before, because I've been on the Universal Studios tour, the backlot tour, where they show you all the different sets and everything like that. And you're supposed to get, I feel like, a sense of amazement and wonderment from MaXXXine, because she's now actually where she wants to be on a movie set. You don't really feel that, but you do feel a connection to it if you've been there before, right? And so eventually, he gets kicked out because, she hides, and then one of the security guards ends up seeing him out there. It ends up that, he ends up running into her again, but she decides to take matters into her own hands, right? To where she goes into a club, and the club scene I think is pretty cool, and that's where she paints her face and everything like that. And when she's in the club, she's dancing when she lures him out, and he's got this monologue like it takes a criminal to find a criminal, and that's why I'm so good. But she does escape, and when he goes outside to the docks and he sees her out there, and that's where she finally tells her agent exactly what happened in X, to where the agent's just like, dude, I do this type of stuff all the time, and you should have told me earlier because I could have helped you out. And then you get the best kill in the movie, and they do kill her friend, right? The masked guy, the masked glove man kills her friend, by slicing the back of his neck, which again is very visceral because you see his neck open up, and then he gets slashed on the face, and that's where she gets taken to the police station after she sees, and I don't know why. I don't think a detective would ever do this. I think in this case it's done for effect for the film, but literally to get her, because she comes outside and they're like, huh. Okay, so she might know this guy. So, he's covered in the white tarp, and then she lifts it up, the blanket or whatever you want to call it, white sheet. Lifts up the white sheet to show that her friend's been, disfigured and sliced up, and that's when she runs in and they take her to the police station. But they end up catching Kevin Bacon's character unaware because she gets a scheme with her agent as well as the bouncer from the strip club that she had, and, he knocks him out. They grab him. They take him to a car yard. They have him in his car. He's chained to the wheelchair, and he's in basically a crusher, right? And this is the best kill in the whole movie. It's not super violent, but I just love that, the way that he's trying to weasel himself out of the whole thing, and that the whole thing is slowly being crushed down, and that all you're getting once it has been completely crushed, because he's just like, hey, I change sides easily. All it doesn't take is money. You want to pay me anything? Pay me anything. Get me out of here. I don't want to do this stuff. I don't want to die in this type of thing. I'll totally side with you. Don't worry. I'll switch on it, and we'll help. We'll go get this guy. We'll do everything we need. Just stop this thing. Just stop this thing. And to which they just allow it to be crushed, because she's here to solve her issue and to get past whatever she needs to get past so that she can go on and be the actress that she wants to be. I just love the car kill. The car kill is the best. So eventually, though, she figures out, and she's thinking back in her mind, and she's remembering what she said to the detective, to where she has to go to that place, because she realizes that everybody was going to some place on the hill. They looked it up. They're like, we don't know anybody that's renting it. It's just some place in the Hollywood Hills below the Hollywood sign. And she kind of at that point puts two and two together and realizes that that's where, whomever has been doing this, that's where they're going to be. So she ends up going up there. The detectives end up following her. And that's where we get the big twist of the movie, is that the person that's been doing everything, all the killings and trying to get a hold of her and bring her here, has been her father, right? The televangelist father from the second, from X. In terms of storyline, the second in the trilogy, but the first film, right? And this is where I don't like it as much, because I don't like the choice that this actor made. He just did it really over the top. And when I'm talking over the top, I am talking Jeremy Irons' Dungeons and Dragons over the top. And the idea is interesting, right? The reason that he's doing this is particularly because he wants to use MaXXXine and what she's done. She's the star of his story, and that she has been corrupted by Hollywood. And Hollywood is a super corrupt place, and it's ruining the lives of our children. It's what's creating the Satanism and keeping Satan in the lives of everybody. And I'm making this film so that way that when it's released, it's going to show the evils of Hollywood. And MaXXXine, you are going to be the star. And the reason that you are going to be the star is because you're going to repent from everything that you've done. We're going to show that the power of the Lord is what is going to save you and what is going to save everybody. Cool. No problem. I don't mind this as much. I think that if he had been a little more serious with it, instead of being so he kind of reminds me that he's trying to do a Leslie Jordan impersonation. If you don't know who it is, I know that he was on American Horror Story, and I actually had to look him up, but he's been in things like Jason Goes to Hell. He was in The Help. He was on Will and Grace for a long time. There's a specific way that he does things that is just like I've heard he's like, oh Lord, I'm about to burst, like that type of like thing that he's doing. Like he's like Ty West wants him, but we have this guy instead to do an impersonation of him. And while I kind of get it, I just don't think that it works. That's my biggest gripe. And even this final sequence is like the very final sequence is great, but everything leading up to it, it just like even Mia Goth feels lost in this scene because they like, you know, she ends up going there, she has a revelation that's her father, and then she just kind of freezes up, right, and just lets her dad do what he wants, right? And she backs up, and they realize that he's killed the original actress from the movie that she's doing, and like by knocking over a suitcase, and then her like head and arms all fly out of there and roll down the stairs, which I thought was kind of cool. I like that shot. And so he ties her up in the backyard, and basically, you know, that's where he explains his whole plan of I'm doing this movie and you're going to be the star, and he's busy filming it, and he's been filming her from the beginning, and he's been piecing it all together from the beginning of her life, taking the pieces from you know, from X and putting it in there. And this is where it's weird. Like, it's a little weird, but why would you go to like, you know, a backroom peep show like and watch your daughter unless you were getting like, I think because he was getting mad that it was his daughter there and how she's been corrupted, but did he not expect it? I think he might have been my maybe reasoning for it is I think that he wasn't expecting it to be her, and then when it actually turned out to be her, that he got really upset, and that's why he like ripped stuff off the wall, because I think he was just looking for, you know, like he was looking for strip club workers, porno workers to basically repent, and basically if they didn't repent, then he took the branding, you know, that he had made with a satanic, you know, symbol on it, the pentagram, and then was branding them with it and killing them and branding them heretics basically. So he's got her tied up, and he's about to do that stuff. And then all of a sudden, that's when the two cops show up out of the bushes and start, you know, a gun battle between his followers and them. And then it's weird because, like, she's tied up with her hands behind a tree, but yet she's able to, like, move enough to where she can get a knife that's in her pocket and then perfectly cut the rope. Like, I had to suspend disbelief a little bit there. I'm like, that really wouldn't have happened. And so the cops chase after him as he runs away. She runs after them as well, and eventually, you know, gunshots are heard. The father has killed the male cop first, who wanted to be an actor, and the constant joke is he's not very good at acting in the whole thing. At least that's what his partner keeps telling him. And eventually, you know, it's funny when she shows up, like the detective, the partner, is like holding on, like, you're gonna make it, and then she's like, here, Maxine, after she told her to stay put. By the way, Maxine grabs a sawed-off shotgun and chases after him because she wants to be the one to, like, end it, right? And she's like, stay here. Just put pressure. I'll be back. I'll make sure I get him. And then, you know, like, Maxine's there holding onto his stomach until he dies, and then she kind of looks around like, well, you're dead. See ya. And just runs off after her father. And eventually, that's where we run into the detective, and she just like does the jump scare out of the bushes, and then she's got the cross is like out of her eye hole, and she's like, oh, I told you I'd get him, and then like tumbles down the hill. It's really dumb and ridiculous. It's really funny. But then you get the cool final scene with Maxine. Because Maxine's got the double barrel shotgun. She goes to her father, and her father's trying to plead with her and say, look what I did for you. I made you this, you know, and you're glorious, and everybody's gonna know your name. And then the police helicopters come over, and they start shining the lights on her, and they call out her name because somehow they know her name as well. And she's holding the shotgun, and then she looks up into the light, and then it switches to where she's like now is a super famous actress. She's getting off on the red carpet for, you know, this movie that she's doing, and she's really well known, and they're going to be doing the Maxine story, the story of her life and everything that she's gone into, and she's like talking on a talk show, and then we find out that, and she's winning awards and shit. And that's all in her head of what she's going to be, because she is going to be infamous. And the way that she's going to be infamous after she has her father do it is she kills her father right there and then. And we get a up close like head blowout of him getting shot in the head with the shotgun, which is great. It's a great fucking gore scene that he put in there. If you say, again, practical effects above all. And like she knew what she had to do, and she tells her father, well, you made me this way, right? And then we go, and it's like a month later, and she's finally wrapping up on filming Puritan 2, and everybody is like clapping for her, and they're all excited, and she's still back there doing cocaine because, you know, you can't fix hoe problems, or you can't take the hoe out of the hoe, or whatever you want to say it. And so, you know, she's in the back, she comes out, and the final shot of the film is them looking into, like, her with the director and looking into the, you know, the director's view box that they have. I don't know what that fucking thing's called. And there's her fake head that's now on the bed. It's the end of the film. And we get a close-up shot of just MaXXXine's, like, severed head on the bed as the credits roll. I like that whole dream sequence before she kills her father. That's great. I think that actually ties everything together, and like it gives her closure, and she gets the point because she's become infamous because of what she does to her father and like saving the day, which is in that dream. But in the dream, she hadn't stopped it. She just stopped that. But it's like, if I do this, you know, this is what my life is going to be like. And it kind of turns out that way. So that's MaXXXine in a nutshell. There's like a lot of little things that I'm missing here or there, but overall, like, I just think that it's got, like I said, really smart dialogue. I think it's got some really awesome scenes to it. Mia Goth is great, not as good as she was in X or Pearl, but still great. And it's just the scenes where I feel like she's a little more timid, and maybe she needs, and when she finally, that ending sequence is not the best. And even for like her, it's not the best. But everything that leads up to it is really, really good and really, really entertaining. And I just think that if you're a big fan of the series, I think that you're really going to like it. Personally, I really did. I had a good time. I'm glad that I woke up early to go see it, and that's it. So if you're not following me on all socials, make sure that you check the links down below inside the description for it. I'd really appreciate a follow on anything that's out there. And make sure that you like and subscribe the video. There is going to be a new review released for Cube 2 Hypercube. Yay. Check out the Terrible Terror podcast. I appreciate it. You guys have yourselves a wonderful, hopefully you guys had a wonderful 4th, and you guys enjoy yourselves, enjoy the rest of your day, and make sure that you take care of each other, and bye guys.